Good morning. Let's hope it doesn't. Hey, hey JMB. Hey Diana. Hey BL. Hey Spiros. Hey Ola. How you all doing? Hey Nick. Hey Vel. Good morning, Booba. I'm gonna try and be extra careful with this setup today. Hey Suki. Good to see everyone back. What happened to the yen? Um, don't know. I didn't look at it. Um, give it a couple of minutes. Oh well, it's all going down. I think mainly because of the pound dollar, the bad news on the employment front for the pound dollar. Hey Carlos, how are you doing? All right, we'll have a look at yen when it comes up. When we look at the charts later. It's like Vel and Dinah's well connected already. Good to see. 2 more minutes and we shall get started. In the meantime, do help me out. Click on that thumbs up and rocket ship button on TradingView. Um, I only have one trade this morning on the Aussie dollar to the downside. Just closed out at about 20, just under 20 pips, I think. What up, Trader X? Hey, Serene, how you doing? Hope you're all well. Hey, if you entered any trades over the last, or yesterday and today, do let me know. Put it into the chat. I don't think the markets has moved, apart from what we just saw over the last hour. I don't think it's moved that much. So do let me know if you had any nice trade setups. It's not exactly quiet. It's not that the market has been super quiet. It's just that it's been a little bit short term, right? Big spike up and a big retracement again. Diana, I am super happy. I am super happy about the Discord group. All thanks to you guys, right? All I did was register a Discord group and you guys made it happen. So I think we've got to just over 200 members right now. So very, never in my wildest dream I thought we'll get to 200 that quickly. But as usual, once we got when I first started, I thought I'll get to 100, 200, I'll be happy. But now that we've got to 200, I'm looking at can we get to 500? How quickly can we get to 500? So that's my next target. Hey, Angel Case, good morning. How are you doing? Trader X did pound yen, hit H1 supply and bleeding, looking to re-entry. Okay, good. Thank you, Val. And I really do hope, hey, at 1,000 by the end of the year, I'll be laughing. I'll be super glad. I'll be laughing. Hey, Minal, how you doing? All right, let's get started. Before I digress further, let's get started. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on this session, the Daily Market Analysis, held every day, 3 p.m. GMT plus 8. What we do during this session, the fundamentals, looking at what happened since the last time we spoke, looking at what could happen. We do have the Canadian CPI to be released today or later tonight, so there'll be something we'll focus on during the session later on. We do look at the technicals, where price is moving, how it's moved towards a level, a resistance or a support level. Combine that together, the fundamentals, the technicals, we look for some possible trade setups. All right. And in addition, today I have an extra hope that we don't hang. Yesterday's session was cut short because all of a sudden my computer just froze. It just froze, couldn't do anything. So unfortunately, we had to cut the session short yesterday. Let's hope that was a once off and will be good for today onwards. All right. If you're new to this session, do help me out. Or if you're new and regular to the session, do help me out. Click that thumbs up button, click that rocket ship button on TradingView. Help us with the algorithm, helps us get found better so that we can get more people onto this session and also into the trading community. If oops, not that one. And also in the trading community, if you haven't joined already, the link is there. It is free to join, absolutely free to join, and it will be free um, all the way, right? All the way. All I look for from you guys is really to join the group, join the community, share, chat, right? Share your trade ideas, your trading journey, any good things that you want to share about, any bad things you want to share about. We're there to help you beyond this 1 hour session. I'll be sharing my trade ideas, any possible setups that I'm watching as price moves as well. All right. So if you haven't already, do make sure you join the community. Hey Goju, how you doing? Hey Patrick, good morning, good to see you. So with that, and hey Mark has been very good with sharing his trade ideas. Actually, I with what Mark has been sharing, has actually helped me with watching different things to watch out for because I can't look at all the different charts at the same time. It does help to divert a bit of my attention towards particular setups as well. All right. So with that said, a quick disclaimer. Any information contained on this webinar should not be construed as advice and is presented as educational material only. Please do your own due diligence because the contents of this webinar is not intended to be a recommendation to trade a financial product. And remember that your objectives, financial situation, and needs has not been considered, and you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances. All right. And if you do have any trading related questions during this session, please feel free to put them into the chat. Whenever I'm looking at this part, I am looking at the chat on TradingView and on YouTube. So any particular pairs you want me to look at, any possible setups that you want me to share and want me to look at, I'll be happy to take that on board, give you my opinion in terms of whether I think it could continue on or whether it's going to bounce or where I think prices could be heading towards. All right, so do put it into chat there if you have any further questions. So let's keep going on. I'm just trying to close off as much programs as I can just to make sure that we're running lean. All right. In terms of the news, what did we have yesterday? We didn't have that much news yesterday, which was kind of shown in terms of how the price moved. So you can see on the dollar index, since we spoke pretty much at about 3 o'clock, the dollar index was at about at a high of 102.56, spiked up a little bit, still consolidated along this 102.40 level. Right. So yesterday's view was we were looking for a reaction along 102.40. Could see the DXY trade up to 103. That didn't happen. It's still consolidating at 102.40. Right. And that's also mainly because of no big news events driving prices in any particular direction. So with that, not a lot to review, but today, what do we have today? A few things that caused some early price movements, right? Some things that caused early price movements. First off was the consumer sentiment, the Westpac consumer sentiment for the Aussies. It was a 9.4. It dropped to a minus 7.9. A big drop in consumer sentiment. I think this is driven not just because of CPI, not just because of inflation, but with that consistent rate increase that came from the RBA. As rate increases, it makes things, makes mortgage payments more painful for a lot of people in Australia. It makes um, the economy shrink or slow down a little bit. So all that combined led to, was likely the driver to why we see consumer sentiment coming out or being released at that minus 7.9%, right? Everyone's looking, going, wait, with rates being that high or increasing, the amount of money they have to spend on retail or on big ticket items is going to reduce because they need to support the mortgage, which is, from the last time I was looking, I think this was last year, right? With rate increases, it was coming up to almost $1,000 for per week, in terms, no, $1,000 either a week or a month, in terms of additional mortgage payments per household. So with rates still increasing, that's definitely going to impact in terms of consumer sentiment. And that's where we saw this go from 9.4 to a minus 7.9. This was released at 8:30 a.m. GMT plus 8. And if you look at the charts, what happened was at this point, oh wait, this point here. Okay, so 8:30 was there, right, as it got released, and then that's where we saw the Aussie turn strongly to the downside. All right, strongly to the downside. I was looking at this drop. When I saw this drop, I was thinking, wait, with that support level at 6688, if it does drop, could we look to sell it down? So I did actually get into a sell at the start of that hour, and I only had that. I just had about 20 or just under 20 pips. I had my stop loss just above there, about 15. I was going for 30. So 15 to 30. But then it dropped out and it was outside of the Bollinger, so I closed out on my trade. Okay, so that was that one trade that I did this morning on the Aussie dollar, just under 20 pips to the downside. So that was the news from the consumer sentiment. 9:30 a.m. we had the monetary policy meeting minutes. Again, it wasn't a big surprise in terms of the meeting minutes, right? If I show you the meeting minutes here, wait, where was it? No, that's the 2nd of May. It's probably that one. Yeah, meeting from the 2nd of May. There was no big surprises there. The main thing I was focused on was towards the end, so I don't normally read all that stuff because that's very macro view, domestic economic conditions, international economic conditions, developments. That doesn't really affect what I would consider for the Aussie dollar. The main thing I was focused on was the considerations for monetary policy, because that's how they came to that decision to hold rates or to increase rates, right? So in this point, they said that inflation was still very high, had peaked. They were discussing on holding rates or increasing by 25 basis points. You see that they actually did have quite a good discussion in terms of holding rates, right? And yet there was also a good discussion on it led to the decision to increase the rates. Okay, so this actually gave a little bit, and that's why you saw on the Aussie at that 9:30 time there was a bit of a drop and then a bounce back up, because it wasn't a talk about, hey, we're only going to, or they were only talking about increasing rates, right? There was talk about holding rates, not increasing, pausing already, but there was still that discussion of increasing. So it was, my view, a relatively balanced discussion, right? Like a better word, discussion in terms of rates, and that's why they came to a 25 basis point rate hike. So that was the news. on the Aussie dollar so far. We did see at 10 a.m. some Chinese data being released. It wasn't good data, could have been one of the reasons why we saw an additional drop in the Aussie dollar, but that was very quickly retraced. A more sustained drop was the employment numbers at 2 p.m., so 1 hour before the session, the employment numbers for the UK. A bit surprising here, right? A little bit surprising here because claimant count changed. As we were talking about this yesterday, it is a number of people claiming for unemployment benefits. It went from a 28.2K, expected a small increase to 31.2, but it came out at a 46.7. Very significant increase in terms of number of people claiming for unemployment benefits. Average earnings index stayed slightly the same, dropped a little bit, got revised down from 5.9 to 5.8. So it stayed at 5.8, while unemployment rate increased from a 3.8 to a 3.9. So it wasn't very good news here for the UK in terms of their employment numbers. And M Leader has just jumped on just as I was talking about UK numbers. Emily, to get back to work. We need better employment numbers. All right. With that, what we actually saw on the pound dollar as that news was released, we saw it go from a 1.2510, broke below 1.25, as low as 1.2466, and now rebounding slightly. Okay, so rebounding slightly. So that was what we saw in terms of the UK employment numbers. With that, at 5 p.m., this is something to note here. At 5 p.m., we do have German ZEW economic sentiment. It does have some impact on, it will likely have some impact on the euro dollar, especially if it does go from a 4 to a minus 5.4%. If economic sentiment in the eurozone goes from a 4 to a minus 5.4%, we could see some downside on the euro dollar. Okay, we could see some downside on the euro dollar. So just have that in the back of your mind, and then we'll look into the charts later on. Tonight at 8:30 GMT plus 8, quite a number of big news to be released. I think this would be or could present some good trading opportunities. We do have the CPI, Canadian CPI month on month, staying likely to stay at that 0.5%. Median CPI year on year dropping, looking like it drop from a 4.6 to a 4.3. Might come out at a 4.4. Might not be as big a drop, but I think it will still signal a drop in inflation growth. Trimmed CPI from a 4.4 to a 4.1. So generally, what we're looking at here is possibly CPI numbers or inflation growth numbers in Canada signaling a slowdown, right? Signaling a slowdown in inflation growth, which again reinforces the Bank of Canada's current stance in holding off further rate increases, right? In holding off further rate increases, this could lead to some weakness in the Canadian dollar, right? Could lead to some weakness in the Canadian dollar, but it also will come down to what's the retail sales number for the US, right? The retail sales and the core retail sales number. Retail sales number was minus 1%, right? So that, remember that time on the 14th of April, we weren't expecting such a big drop. We did see it go from a minus 0.2 to a minus 1% on the 14th of April. Looking at the charts here, let me find it. Likely this point here. Where was it? There. Okay. So do that. at that point. Okay, so it went from a minus 0.2, revised from a minus 0.4 to a 1%, and core retail sales went from a 0 to a minus 0.8. But you can see that although these were negative numbers in terms of the retail sales on the 14th of April, we actually saw on the 14th of April at that time, the zoom in a little bit, the dollar index actually shot down a little bit, right? Went from a 101 down to that 101, 100.80, almost 100.80 level, and then bounced back up, right? I wouldn't say that this is typical of the or what we could expect in this case. So remember that on the 14th, this was on a Friday. This was following that big drop on the dollar index. That's why we saw it test that support and bounce back up. So it's not just the fundamental reason of where we see price could head towards, but it's also combining with the technical aspects. In this case, this month, I'm expecting, or rather looking at this, I'm thinking that we could see a rebound. Let me just think. We could see a small rebound. I don't think it'd be a negative. I don't anticipate it'd be a negative number. I think it could come out quite close to expectation. All right. One couple of reasons why I think that is if you look at the previous data in terms of the retail sales number, it does have a bit of a trend where it goes negative, negative, and then a good strong number. It goes in a weaker than expected and a good strong number again. Right, a negative region and then a good strong number again. And if we looked at May last year, we could see a bit of a rebound. Right, so I'm expecting a little bit of a rebound, maybe some dollar strength later into the session tonight. With that, President Lagarde speaking at 10. I don't think it's going to be a big news. I don't think this will be something that I'll be too worried about. It is at an awards ceremony, so I'm not too concerned. Then nothing much else. GDT price index, that's the global dairy trade. GDT is a dairy trade. There we go. Global dairy trade will affect the Kiwi dollar a little bit, but I don't see a big surprise there. Moving on into tomorrow, Aussie with yen. I don't think it's going to do too much. Aussie with the price wage index 0.8 to a 0.9, not likely to do too much as well. And then we'll talk about this tomorrow. Okay, so those are the news, the main news items to pay attention to. Nick has a question. What news would be more impacting the USD or the CAD CPI? I would actually say the retail sales number. Okay, I would say the retail sales number because if you look at the Canadian CPI, it's came to the point where it's moving quite in that good direction. I don't think we'll see a big surprise. April 18th, just as an example, even when we went from a 4.9, expected 4.5, came out at 4.6 on the 18th of April. Zooming back. 18th of April right there. And at about that 8 p.m. timing, you can see that. Okay, so I'll move that line just one before. Not a big surprise there in terms of the CAD CPI number, right? Not a big move, despite the data being released at 4.6 compared to expectation of 4.5. So, if it does show a slowdown or continue to show a slowdown in terms of CPI number, then I think it's going to be a relatively muted event, right? With the main directional bias coming from the US retail sales number. All right, hope I answered your question there, Nick. Good question. So with that, then, oh, what's happening here? Okay. With that, then let's look at the dollar index. So dollar index today being the 16th of May, we are still looking for a reaction along 102.40. Okay, and you can see that it's been consolidating very quite tightly, right? Since 5 o'clock yesterday, when it got into that 102 dot between 102.60 and 102.40, it's been in that. What we could see is um, some move down and then possibly a rebound back up again. Okay, so I think it's going to trade within the range of 102 and 102.40. Why I think it's going to rebound, anticipating that the retail sales number could bring some upside to the dollar. So I'm looking at it possibly trading down now in the lead up to the news event, and then maybe bouncing back up again. Failing which is likely to just consolidate at this point. So we're looking for this could break out to 102, but likely to range between 102 and 102.40. Okay, so I think that we could see it break out. If it does break out strongly, you could see it break down to 102, but likely to remain within this range. Another reason why I think we could see it break down is because of that pin bar right there at a 2 o'clock timing. All right, so that's the view for the dollar. And then if it does come down to 102, that'd be that 50% level. So I think that that's possibly going to hold and then range in this level again. So with that said about the dollar index, the Kiwi dollar, we were looking to sell this down. If it does test and reject that 0.6225 level, didn't really happen or didn't happen. So take that away, that trade didn't trigger. Now that it seems to have bounced and seems to be holding off this level, support, resistance turns support. What you could be looking for is that. Let me see. I think that given we're anticipating some downside on the dollar, you could be looking for a long 6260, stop loss 40, take profit 40, 1:1 to the upside on the Kiwi dollar. I don't see why. I mean, naturally, I would normally say go all the way up, but I don't see the Kiwi dollar moving 100 over pips today. So I would say 40 to 40 on the Kiwi dollar, given that it's found that support and could push up. All right, so 6260, 40 to 40. Kiwi dollar by 0.6262. Was it 62? 6260, sorry. 6260, stop loss 40, take profit 40. I wouldn't rank this very high on my trade setup just because of how it's right in the middle. I do think that we might see some other better trading opportunities. Okay, but as a setup, that'll be something I'll be looking for. Next up are the Aussie dollar. All right, so Aussie dollar, same thing. We were looking at this, could drop back down But I was looking that if we could buy, if it does break above that interim level, we could look to buy at 6710. This was the view from yesterday. I would maintain this view. All right, this level still holds because it's tested quite well. If I'm not wrong, I think it will be that 38.2 level that has been holding. Right, so that big move down, 38.2 fib retracement level, it's held two times. Now, too early to enter. 668 or 6690 as a resistance. Looking for it to break out, break above that 38.2. We could be looking to buy 0.6710. Stop loss 30 pips, take profit 80 pips. We're looking for that to continue. Okay, so 6710, stop loss 30, take profit 80, looking for that to continue. Is gold continuing to push down? We'll look at gold shortly, so hang on there. Tembasa, we'll get to that shortly. Okay, all right, cool. Then I want to get to this. This has been very interesting. The US yen on the H1 time frame. Okay, again, that trade didn't trigger, so we'll take that away. It hasn't moved that much yesterday, so a lot of trades didn't trigger. Um, what I'm really keen on here is that the US yen has been holding below this 61.8 level at 136 about 136.20 in this range since it got in on Friday, failed to break. I am looking at a possible breakout potential. It looked even more evident earlier today, earlier this session, where it was just trading in this range, and then yesterday it was just very tight. You can see this was yesterday's view, just along that 136 level. Today it broke down a little bit, but it hasn't broken out yet. So I'm looking for a breakout potential here on the yen. Ideally, I would be looking for that dollar, because we're looking at some dollar weakness pushing down before maybe some strength coming back into play, might break to the downside. Right? US yen could break to the downside with that momentum, with some of the other pairs pushing down. You could be looking for a straddle here in terms of 135.50. So below 135.50, tight stop loss at about 25 to 30 pips. Take profit at about 80 to even 90 pips to the downside, right? Breaking below that 135 level to that trend line, right? I think that it could do this, break down to the trend line before bouncing back up again. So that's one view on the US yen, maybe breaking downwards, breaking out to the downside. Alternatively, if we are completely wrong on the dollar index, then breaking above that 61.8, wait for the candle to close, because we are seeing, or we have seen many tails to the upside. Wait for the candle to close. You could be looking to buy up 136.40, extra safe. Stop loss maybe 30 pips. If it does break out, then I would say take profit. Could be as high as almost 140, but I think even if you came to that consolidation area at about 90 pips or almost 100 pips would be reasonable. So I'm looking at a possible breakout potential here on either side for the US yen. All right. So US yen. Oh, sorry. Breakout potential, upside, buy above 136.40, sell below 135.50. Above 136.40, stop loss 30 to 100. Stop loss is 30. 30, take profit 100, or sell below 135.50. Stop loss was 25, take profit 90. 25, take profit 90. All right, so that's breakout potential on the US yen for either direction. It is in that range right now. Okay, so as we looked at the yen and as we looked at the Aussie dollar, right, looking at the Aussie yen, which we did a bit yesterday after the session when it hung, I was looking at it breaking above 91, thought that it could climb all the way up. It actually moved up and then retraced back down again. So let me just take that away. Very minimal analysis there. So let's put this level in as a support. This level up here as a big resistance. And I think this level here as an interim level. All right, and then what you see here on the Aussie yen is it's finding some support along this upward trend line. So again, I would say that this move is done. It could bounce, push up, right? We're looking at the Aussie dollar possibly moving to the upside. The US yen might drop a little bit, but Aussie dollar pushing up could see the Aussie yen push up. I'll be a bit safer here and say that I wouldn't be looking to buy at 91 anymore. I'll be looking to possibly buy above 91.40, upside about 80 pips. Take profit about 40 pips, and then next one at 80. Stop loss relatively tight at about 40 pips. So you're looking at least a 1:1, and even better a 1:2 to the upside if that Aussie dollar continues pushing up. Okay, so that's the US yen, the Aussie, and then some cross pairs. Next up, looking at the pound dollar. So big high five there to Mark. I'm pretty sure Mark got out at the pound yen. We're just talking about this in the group. So lucky you got out of that because it's pushed way back up. Pound dollar dropped, right? Had that big drop because of the employment number. But you would also see, I was warning everyone, be careful, it's going to retrace because it's way outside, or the H1 time frame was way outside of that Bollinger Band. That's why we saw it bounce back up again. Okay, so right now back above that 1.25 level. Active and operating. Yeah, it is. Hey Jordan, how are you doing? Okay, so it is back above that 1.25 level. At this point, I would like to say that we could see some upside, but I am wary of this level here. Okay, that's a terrible line, sorry. I'm wary of this level here at 1.2535. But if you were looking to buy above this point, then it's only a relatively small move. It wouldn't make sense in terms of a risk of 40 to 50 pips. A take profit to that resistance level wouldn't really make sense. So I would like to say that you can see that 38.2 held quite well. It would be something that you want to do on a short term. Okay, so why I'm hesitating a little bit is because I'm looking at this. Employment numbers are bad. We should see this trade to the downside, and we have seen it trade to the downside. But the dollar weakening, or expecting that dollar weakness to come around, could see this push up. Not a H1 kind of trade, might be a shorter term kind of trade. If it breaks above, you could see it trade up to that 1.2580 resistance level. But I think that more likely we could see it do this. I think we could see it do that. All right. So as a setup, I would put it at maybe looking to sell, looking for it to come up to that 1.2540 region. If it rejects, sell 1.2525. Stop loss very tight at 20 pips. Take profit could be way down to 60 pips, testing that trend line again. Okay, so 1.2525. 20 pip stop loss, 60 pip take profit. Pound looking to sell 1.2525. Stop loss 20, take profit 60. Yes, and that's also right, Suki. Um, it's not. So Suki asked, is that a double top or is that different? It is that double top here. All right. So what I'm looking at is why you probably sense that I'm, a bit or undecided about the pound dollar. Is because while there is a double top here, one top and two tops here, um, which if it rejects, we will see it turn down. And why I think it could also break up is because we also could be looking at a bit of a head or shoulder head and a skewed shoulder, with that providing the neckline. Okay, so we're looking at the development or one pattern already developed and possibly the development of a second pattern. So if it breaks above that neckline, we could see it trade up to that resistance of 1.2580, possibly even higher. But at the fundamental front, with the weaker employment numbers, I don't see why it should be trading that much to the upside unless the dollar really weakens that much. So that potential, that upside and downside potential is there, but I will be looking for maybe that rejection of that 38.2 level to push down. Make sense to you there, Suki? Yeah, there you go. Inverted head and shoulder there. Um, did I say inverted or did I say head and shoulder? Inverted head and shoulder there on the pound dollar. So that's the pattern there, and then double top. So just being a little bit careful on the pound dollar, in addition to that fundamental view. Okay, so that's why we said possibly sell. Let's add on to that and say double top or inverted head and shoulder. Okay, dollar moving quite nicely, looking for this to push down. Then the euro dollar. Okay, euro dollar, the same view that we could be looking for today, right? Maybe not as exaggerated, or not as long. I think that we could be even looking at that move down. All right, why I think it is pushing to the upside now. Small support to the push. Small support to push price higher, but again, good one, Mark. But again, I'm looking at the economic sentiment soon to be released in an hour's time. If it does come out in a negative range, then maybe we'll be looking at the euro dollar turn down. So again, I would hold this view 1.08 below 1.09. Right below 1.09, sell down 20 pip stop loss, 60 pip take profit to the downside. Sell 1.0895, 20 pips, 60 pip. Yep, got that done. All right, so I think this could push up a little bit. test, reject, and turn back down. Looking forward to that, Jordan. So Mark said, until now we're all millionaires. So looking forward, and John said, "Oh, you'll be Mark." So looking forward to that. Okay, so that's the euro dollar looking for it to push up, possibly turn back down because of the German ZEW economic sentiment. With that, next up, the US Swiss franc, dollar pushing down, no big news. This pushing down would have triggered your trade at 8960, pushing to the downside. I think if you did get into this trade, let me know. Not a pair that I trade. I do analyze it, but not a pair I trade because I focus more on the euro dollar. I think that with the way the dollar is possibly going to move, we could see the US Swiss franc trade downwards. The Swissie could trade down, with that providing a bit of a support. So come down to this 8915 level, 13 level, find a bit of support. If it does break, it'll be too late to enter a trade now, but if it does come down and break below this support level, then you could be, well, if it breaks below that support, you could be looking for further downside towards the 8860 level. However, remember the view that we might see the dollar should trace down and then bounce back up. So you might be considering as an alternate view whether the US Swiss franc could bounce from this horizontal support, this diagonal trend line, so about 8923, 8925. 8925, stop loss 20 pips, take profit towards the previous high of 60 pips to the upside, right? So we could be, or rather we're looking for it to trade down and then possibly bounce back up. If it does not bounce, then we could see it just trade down straight to 8860. Okay, so 8925, 20 pip stop loss, 60 pip take profit. 89, could be looking to buy on 8925. Stop loss 20 pips, take profit 60 pips. There we go. Okay, dollar still dropping, Swissie still dropping as well. With that, then the USD CAD, the loonie, I was highlighting this. This was one of the big ones I wanted to share with you all yesterday before we hung. Right now, I'm still moving on screen, so we haven't hung yet. As a possible counter trend trade, with that big downside potential, stop loss 50, take profit 100, selling at 1.3480. So 1.3480, 50 to 100. It didn't move as much as I anticipated. In fact, it's coming very close, finding that 50% area may be a bit hard to break. I think that with the way it's moving, we could actually see, because that dollar is weakening now, right? So we could actually see price come down to that 61.8, but I'm looking for a bounce back up. Okay, no. I would say that I will wait for it to drop down to 61.8. So I want to see it come down to this level. Good morning, Jamil. How are you doing? Right, and if it does break below 61.8 on dollar weakness, then we could see this continue to the downside. But again, remember that we were looking at the CPI numbers not having a big impact, possible retail sales possibly bringing some strength to the dollar. So I would say that naturally we'll be looking for this to continue to the downside. If not, if it finds a support at that 1.3425 level, so we'll be looking at 1.3435, buy back up 80 pips, stop loss very tight, in this case at 20 pips. All right, so looking for it to come down. If it does test this, bounce, we could see it go back up. If not, then break through, just be the flip side. Stop loss 20 pips, take profit 80 pips to the downside. Wouldn't do anything on the US CAD yet unless until it reacts to that 1.3425 level. Looking very strong right now. Okay, so US CAD, look for reaction at 1.35, 1.3425. 1.3425. Okay, there we go. And then as we look, let me just do a quick review. Pound still moving up. So the pound yen bouncing back up again. So this was a trade that we saw on Friday. I'll take that away. You can see that this move found the most recent move down found that 38.2% level, right? Found that 38.2% level, and it was outside of Bollinger Band. That's why it's bouncing back up. So I would say for the pound yen, pound pushing higher, US yen still sitting in that range. So pound yen could continue back up. I wouldn't do anything yet. I would like to actually see the pound dollar push up a bit higher, which could take the pound yen up towards that resistance that we saw here. Then I'll be looking to sell down. Right? I'll be looking to sell if it doesn't break above 171. So look for it to reject 171, sell down 170.80, stop loss 30 pips, take profit, could go way down to even back to that 130 pip level. Okay, there we go. That's what I'll be looking for there on the pound yen. Looks like a big move, looks like something that could take a while to form, but on the pound yen it could be quite quick as well. So something I'll be watching on the pound yen. Euro yen in that consolidation. We were looking at this on Monday, didn't, looking for it to test and reject. It didn't, it just tested and broke through. So I'll take that away. And now that you can see that it's just consolidating at this range. With look to the euro dollar for a directional bias. This is pushing up. If it does push up and reject, then on the euro yen you could actually see it test and then turn back down. But because it is consolidating right in the middle of that support and resistance level, I would say be extra careful on the euro yen. Possibly not worth trying to rush a trade on the euro yen. A lot of other pairs to jump onto instead. Okay, then lucky last, looking at the gold. All right, so we're looking at this for it to test down, bounce back up. It didn't. It actually pushed so on Monday it went up as high as 2020, and it retraced back down to that 2000 level. Right now, again, looking like it's trying to bounce off from that 2000 level. I do not anticipate much activity here on gold. likely to hold, that 38.2% likely to hold. So to answer Tembasa's question, um, expecting some downside on the dollar index, I think that we could see gold push back up towards this range, towards that 2020 level, and then bounce within this range. I think it's going to stay between 2000 and 2020. So it didn't go beyond 2020, so didn't happen, but I think it's likely to range between 2000 and 2020. Hi, Data Fook, how are you doing? Farouk? Okay, so that's it. Any questions? Any questions? All good? If you find it useful, helpful, interesting, informative, do help me out. Click that rocket ship button on TradingView and also that thumbs up button there on YouTube. A lot of you watching, not many clicking, so you can help me out. All right. So with that, again, I think that prices are moving quite interesting. Is setting up, it's forming up. So the Kiwi dollar not ready yet, but it's getting to that level. Aussie dollar pushing back up. I think that six attacks to that point. What attacks? Aussie dollar could be forming up as well. US yen looking for that breakout to the downside, likely. Pound dollar pushing up, looking for it to test and reject. Euro dollar forming up, waiting for that 5 o'clock news. Sweezy looking to see what happens at that support level. USD CAD or the Loonie, again, that support level with a couple of news to be released. And you can see also not the best setup, but a bit of a, no, it's already broken. I was going to say a bit of a head and shoulder, but it's already broken that neckline. Jordan, of a question, perhaps a random question, not it's never silly, no question silly. How sensitive is the dollar index to trends? A 10-year uptrend at 92 to 96 as well as downtrend from September. Um, it's the dollar index does trend a little bit, right? It does trend, or very good to trend in terms of what am I saying? Dollar index is good for. It does hold trends quite well, also because it's in relative terms to all the other currency pairs. But what I am actually finding, I don't actually look at it that far back from 10 years and in the big long term periods, because most of us will be trading in the short to medium term. So I do tend to look at it more in the short to medium term. What I am finding a lot more is not so much on the trend of the dollar index, but more on the volatility of the dollar index that causes the price movements. All right, so something to think about there. So Mark was referring to gold in terms of the 6.6 attacks to that point. Oh, okay. I think I know what you mean. Yes, testing that level there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's going to test. Possibly going to test, but I think it's going to range within these levels. Okay, so I hope you found it interesting, useful. There are trade setups yet forming, but not yet ready. Do join the Discord channel. It's there. We will update as it happens. Um, and also, hey, if you can, put a feedback or review. Let me know what you think about this session, either in the chat here or in the Discord channel. I'll really appreciate that. Any suggestions on how we can make this better, I'll take that on board as well. Okay, so for now, trade well, trade safe. Let's catch up in the Discord channel. If not, I'll see you all tomorrow, 3 p.m. for our daily market analysis. Bye-bye now.